Hi, welcome to the Tale Trail. I'm Sharon, a webcomic creator slash YouTuber, and this is my brother, Lyndon.
What's up?
We both love stories and we like talking about them. Stories in any form are welcome on this podcast.
That's right.
Speaking of, we have a really different format this episode. Last episode was a book, a children's book, and its subpar movie adaptation. And now we are covering an anime and its very different CGI adaptation. So the anime in question is Trigun. Now, I wrote here a note that says, roughly explain our history with the series and pick your favorite character. So, when did I know I watched Trigun, I think in the summer of 2023. Actually, I watched Stampede before that, but then I remember watching the original in the summer of 2023, which is when I really fell in love with it. Because I watched Stampede and I liked it, but I watched the old Trigun and I loved it. And then because I loved the old one, I loved the new one more as well, because it kind of made both of them make more sense. And then after I watched it, I think I showed it to you, but I don't remember when that was.
It was pretty quick after you watched it. You were like, hey, check this out. It's a really, really cool anime, Anna. And I think that was the first anime I watched.
Aside from like some Ghibli movies.
Yeah.
And I don't know what else you've seen. Some other anime movies like Ghibli. But
yeah, but this was the first real anime I watched.
Series.
Kind of
Yeah, the first anime series. And he liked it. And I distinctly remember, because you were younger at the time, I got Dad to let you watch it because I told him it was a Catholic anime. Now, we're not Catholic, we're Christian, Protestant, but it was enough to get him to like roll his eyes and let you watch it without him asking questions. But it's true, it actually is true. It's, well, I'll get more into that part later. First of all, if you had to pick a favorite character from all of Trigun, across every version that you've kind of seen, who would be your favorite? Sorry.
Could I split it by both the adaptations, or do I have to pick one character?
You can do that. I was just curious if there was an answer to that, but if you have to split it, then do so. Sorry.
Yeah, I'd probably say that. Oh bother, I forgot his name. The priest.
Wolfwood.
Wolfwood. Oh my goodness.
I knew you were gonna say this.
I feel insulted for getting his name there, but yeah, Wolfwood. He's such an interesting character. He almost reminds me of myself. Obviously, not the killings he makes in the episodes, but.
You said split from different versions. So which version is your favorite Wolfwood?
The 1998 one.
Sweet. You know what? That's funny because that goes to show just how different he is in the Stampede adaptation.
Absolutely.
Sometimes I call it Stampede Gaze because the first season is called Stampede and the second season is called Stargaze. So when you're talking about both of them, I'm like Stampede Gaze, even though it sounds horrible. It does kind of do the job. But speaking of how different he is, my husband actually doesn't like Wolfwood in the old one very much. And I was like, what? Why? And I think it was kind of in a bit of a childish way where he didn't like that he was always messing with my boy Vash, because he really likes Vash. And he's like, he's a problem. He's always like getting in his way, or like they're always clashing, they're always butting heads because they have such different ideologies. I don't think that means he like hated Wolfwood or anything. But then in the new one, he actually likes Wolfwood. And in the new one, he is like super edgy, emo, gloomy, and like that sort of cheerful attitude he has in the old one, even though that's kind of a facade probably. It's just gone. It's not there.
Yeah.
Not even close. And that doesn't mean he doesn't have redeeming qualities in the new one, but he has a very different personality and backstory. But we'll get into that when we do the whole comparison thing. But my favorite character is Vash the Stampede. The one and only. Like, how can you compete with that? Although there are a lot of good competitors in this show, though, or in this entire story. I love Wolfwood also. I love Meryl and Millie, at least in 1998 version. And I actually really love Knives as a villain. And Legato. But Vash is top tier, and I love him in both versions.
Both versions are great.
I actually, and we'll get more into this later, but I actually think it's possible that the new version depicts Vash and Knives better than in the old one. However, Vash is still so good in the old one that it's very close. There's just a few things that are a little bit inconsistent at the beginning, I think.
Yeah.
But like throughout the new one, Vash is even more passionately merciful and sincere
Much
in
more
his
fleshed out.
ideals than he is in the old one. But he's more direct. That I think the whole show is more direct. So it's not that the ideals aren't there in the old one. It's just that it's less is said and it's more shown. But it's also possible they nerfed his aura just a tad in the new one.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah,
I'd say for sure.
So it's a bit of a trade-off. Both are good. I just love Vash the Stampede.
Yeah.
I love who he is as a person.
And I'd say for the new one, Vash is my favorite.
Yeah, he's better than Wolfwood in the new one.
Yeah.
Hands down. All right. Well, this time for the rough plot summary, I really fumbled it last time. So this time I wrote something down. You tell me if it's too vague, okay? But hopefully it will be less confusing than what I did last time. So, rough plot summary. Trigun follows the notorious Vash the Stampede on a desert planet. A wanted man, Vash is a skilled gunslinger who is famous for somehow destroying a whole city single-handedly. But when two plucky insurance agents are assigned to find and monitor him, they slowly come to realize that Vash is not the ruthless murderer they've heard about. Who or what is Vash the Stampede? And who is his brother, Million's Knives? And that's all I wrote.
Pretty good summary.
It's kind of vague, but at the same time there's so much to unpack here, it's a little bit difficult to summarize. And the old one is also very slow about plot. The new one kind of shoves everything in your face from the get-go. So they're like, we don't want to take time to build up. We're going to show flashbacks in the first episode. So, and that's not inherently wrong. It's just a very different style of storytelling. You could say it's easier to follow. However, you could also say it's overstimulating because it's a bit too fast-paced, I think, and a bit too crammed, especially since they only have 12 episodes per season in the new one. So there's a bit of a trade-off for both of them. It says, discuss Yasuhiro Naito's faith and how he uses Trigun as an allegory or metaphor. So yeah, this is really interesting because I don't know that much about the author of the Trigun manga, Mr. Naito. At least I think that's his last name. Sometimes with Japanese it's a little confusing because they put the last name first. I'd have to double check on that. But yeah, the author is Yasuhiro Naito, and he is apparently a Catholic man, but he's Japanese, so that's very unusual. However, he's Catholic, but he's also said that he's not super religious, so I'm not quite sure how much of a Catholic he is, but obviously he is something of a Catholic because Christian symbolism is all over Trigun. Even before I knew that it was intentional, I could see some of it. But then once you realize it's intentional, you realize it's everywhere. But it's not just the obvious stuff like the cross is. There's cross imagery all over Trigun.
Yeah, that was a little detail I appreciated about it, for sure.
So this allegorical stuff, or maybe it's more of a metaphor, it's a kind of an allegory, maybe not quite as explicit or direct as something like the Chronicles of Narnia, but it's still there. I think it's wonderfully subtle, sometimes obvious. In the new one, it's a lot more direct, but I wanted to mention a couple small details because the metaphor is obvious in the way the story goes. The story mirrors the Bible, and a lot of the characters are a mirror of characters in the Bible. But there's also sometimes really small symbolic things that are easy to miss. We'll get more into which characters represent whom. My next note about the background of the show is that Trigun, the 1998 anime, was made before the manga was finished, creating its own ending. So this sort of creates a Full Metal Alchemist situation. I don't know if you are familiar with Full Metal Alchemist, but the original anime was made before the manga was finished, so they had its own ending. I saw some of it, but I didn't watch all of it, and then I watched the new one, which they made that closely follows the manga, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, so it's very good, but now you have two different stories. You have the actual story, and then you have the original story that they kind of made up out of necessity. So Trigun 1998 is like that, but I think they do very well with making up their own story after they have to deviate from the manga. Stampede and Stargaze, which is the new Trigun adaptation from Studio Orange, they borrow a lot more material from the manga, but they are still quite different. Now, I have read the manga myself, but it's been a long time, and I have seen the Trigun anime, both versions, a lot more than I have read the mangas. And for simplicity's sake, we're just going to focus on comparing the two different animated versions, but I may reference the manga here and there. So my next point says, Trigun's pacing in 1998 is, quote-unquote, deceptively slow burn. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yes, I do. it slugs it out through the episodes very slowly.
Well, when I say deceptively, it appears to be a slow, simple story, but there's always some underlying thing it's building up to, and it doesn't tell you. It's deceptive in that everything is there, but it doesn't tell you what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Stampede, it immediately tells you everything almost very quickly. For one example, you saw in the original, we don't find out that Wolfwood is going to betray Vash, or that he was planning to, until close to the end of the series.
Mm-hmm.
So that whole time, we became friends with him, we loved him, we're attached to him, and then we just have this reveal, like, what? And then on the new one, I think we find out right after we meet him that he's working with knives. So I don't think that necessarily makes you hate the character, but it doesn't. Maybe
right.
It gets in the way of you getting attached to the character as quickly. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just a different way of telling a story.
It is, yeah.
And the pacing in Stampede and Stargaze is much more direct and fast-paced, but I think I've said that already. Even some of the metaphors are much more direct, but we will get into that in the next portion. I wrote, discuss how the story mirrors parts of the Bible, e.g., Vash equals Jesus, Knives equals Lucifer, or the devil, Rem equals God, Wolfwood equals Judas and or the church.
Mm-hmm.
Do you dispute any of those?
No, I do not.
I don't want to say I'm reaching, because I do think these are intentional, but I also think they're open to interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think you have to see these characters as metaphors for these biblical figures, but I do think they work very well. And with Vash and Wolfwood and Knives in particular, I think it was very intentional, especially with Vash and Knives. Wolfwood is probably, you can interpret him a lot of different ways. But Vash and Knives are definitely, like, Vash is a Christ figure and Knives is pretty much the devil, although not literally, because in the manga he actually gets redeemed. I haven't quite finished the new series yet, but I'm almost done. So I'm not sure if he gets redeemed in the new one, but he doesn't get redeemed in the old one.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least they kind of leave the ending open, so you're not sure what ends up happening to him. Like, if he survives, maybe he would end up being redeemed, but for what we see, he hasn't really been redeemed. He's just defeated. But Vash, as a Christ figure, is, I think, very effective. I think because Rem is his mother and the one who teaches him all those things about humanity, all those ideals, she is a good example of God the Father.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree.
Because she sort of sends Vash to Earth to save humanity, because she died to save them. And so every one of those people who is alive on that planet is alive because of her. And because of that, Vash doesn't want to kill any one of them, no matter how bad they are, because he just sees Rem. So it's a call back to how people are made in the image of God. One thing I should say is that Vash and Knives, and we are a little bit disorganized again, because I should have covered this in the plot summary, but Vash and Knives are brothers, but they are not human beings. They are plants. Mm-hmm. And in Trigun, a plant is like an artificially created being, created by humans, and they generate power and resources for humans. So most plants aren't sentient, like they're alive and they feel things, but they can't talk or make their own decisions. But Vash and Knives are a very rare exceptions called independents. And they can walk around, they look like people, but they don't age, and they're much stronger, they have powers, they have something called an angel arm.
So cool.
Which is very cool. It's like this wing grows out of their arm and back and stuff, and then they open this like crazy black hole portal thing called a gate that can pretty well destroy a whole planet.
It's like a nuke.
That's very cool. So they're definitely not human beings, is my point here. Which is another reason why Vash as a Christ figure works so well. So Rem isn't literally the boy's mother, but she decides to take care of them on the spaceship when they find them, and she protects them from the other passengers who maybe would have experimented on them like they did with one other independent plant, although that's in the new one, but it's not in the old one. So Vash comes down to Earth who looks like a man, but he's not a man. He's something much more powerful. He's a higher being, if you will, as Knives always likes to point out. And yet he has this love for humanity, and he wants to save them, all of them, no matter how bad they are, and he refuses to take human life. Which can seem pretty idiotic unless you see him as a Christ figure, because Christ didn't want anyone, said, "It is not my will that any should perish," So it makes more sense if you see it that way. Otherwise, it might be a little bit, hey, sometimes, this is pretty necessary, as a lot of characters in the show is
Which
talking.
cues Wolfwood, and his character.
Wolfwood is kind of the antithesis. I shouldn't say antithesis, maybe that would be Knives, but Wolfwood is a good foil to Vash.
Yes.
Some other examples of how the story mirrors the Bible is that a great fall happens in the story. So what happens is Vash and Knives, when they're still pretty young on that spaceship, and what happened was Earth was in a bad situation, and the humans needed to live elsewhere. So they sent a bunch of colony ships to look for inhabitable planets, and those are called the seed ships. And that's where Rem was a scientist or something. Rem was one of those humans, and they created the plants, and Vash and Knives, I don't know if they created them intentionally, but they were born as independent plants, because plants can give birth to other plants as well, by the way. I think most plants are female. But while they're kids, Vash and Knives quickly see how humanity views them, and it's pretty negative. But Rem teaches them to love all people, that no one has the right to take the life of another, and that humans can change. Humans have the ability to change, even after they make mistakes. But Knives kind of starts to disregard this because he becomes really absorbed.
And bitter,
He becomes really consumed by just how bad humanity is, whereas Vash...
Can't blame him.
Yeah, and it's hard to blame Knives because he was treated really badly by humans, and he's watching them destroy all his brothers and sisters as he views them, the plants. But Vash is like Rem. He loves Rem so much that he sees the world through her eyes, and even though he also sees Knives' point of view, he still thinks that there is a way for everyone to survive, and not that it's a kill or be killed situation, like one species has to dominate the other. But the Great Fall, which is what I was trying to get to, sorry. The Great Fall happens when Knives manipulates the passengers of the ship and sets a course. Over time, he sets a course for all the ships to, I think, self-destruct, except for the plant ships. And so once that happens, Rem and the boys are trying to escape, but then Rem goes back to try to save everyone, or save whoever she can. And so because of Rem's meddling, some ships are able to crash land on this desert planet where the story takes place. So all the humans who populate this desert planet are descendants of those people who crashed there. But Rem dies in the process, and now Vash and Knives are still at odds, fighting over this planet, fighting over humanity. And Knives still has plans to end everything. He's just slowly working towards it. But Knives is the one who caused the fall of man, essentially, making him very akin to a Lucifer figure. But then Vash coming down to Earth is like Jesus coming down to save humanity from their fallenness. Another way the story mirrors the Bible is, at least in the old one, think about it. So it takes place in the desert, and then Vash is going about his journey to stop Knives. But on the way, Knives is sending him person after person to try to get him to betray his morals, to betray his vow to never kill a human being. And each of these persons is one of the... Was there 7 gung-ho guns?
I think there was 11, wasn't there?
Oh, I forgot how many there are. Whoops. I'd have to look that up. But there are a bunch of assassins with cool powers or skills, and he sends one after the other to Vash to try to...
Torment him, basically.
Yeah, to torment him, because Knives knows that these guys aren't going to be able to kill Vash, so he wants to break Vash instead, and he's enjoying it a little too much. But if you think about it, it's a bit like how in the desert for 40 days, the devil was tempting Jesus, trying to get him to abuse his power or to abandon who he was. If you're really the Son of God, you can just do this. You can just jump off this building here and angels will catch you, or if you bow down and worship me, I'll give you all these things. And so Knives is if you just abandon what Rem taught you,
yeah, your humanity, basically,
then you'll see that I'm right, and that you can't win. And also he's gonna enjoy breaking his spirit too, because he's pretty frustrated with his little brother.
Yeah,
Knives is a pretty messed up guy.
Yep.
Another thing that is not in the original is the spider and the butterfly analogy.
I wasn't a big fan of that from a couple of those episodes, but I'm open to it.
Well, what's your problem with the spider and the butterfly analogy?
It just felt off to me. It was a little weird, but it's probably just because I watched the other anime prior, so it just felt a little weird.
But that's in the old anime, so you would have seen that before. This isn't new.
Oh, wait. No, I got confused. That is on the old one.
So to elaborate, when Vash and Knives are children in the original story, Knives and Vash see a spider web and there's a butterfly caught in it. And then the spider goes to eat the butterfly. And the butterfly, Vash wants to save the butterfly, so he's trying to, like, kind of pry the butterfly out without, like, damaging the insect. But then Knives just grabs the spider and crushes it.
To be honest, that's what I would do.
I don't like spiders either. But Vash is like, what are you doing? Like, I was trying to not kill either of them, but then save the butterfly from getting eaten. And Knives is like, well,
Killing easier.
Yeah, Knives is like, well, that's ridiculous. If you save one, then the spider is gonna die of starvation. So you have to decide which one you would rather have live. You can't have them both live. That's not how nature works. And he's not wrong. And later on, but it's almost like not that bad, because logically he's right.
But then he develops this obsession with it.
But he uses that analogy to justify what he's doing in the future. He's like, I kill the spiders to save the butterflies. So he kills the humans to save plants. And humans are garbage that consume resources. That's all they're good for. My husband put it this way. He said, it's true that one has to die for the other to live most of the time. Like, that's kind of the circle of life. But at the same time, if you make that choice constantly without any remorse, then you're a psychopath. And yeah, I think that was the problem. Like Rem said to Knives, it's wrong to make that decision so easily. But he did, like, without a second thought. He squishes the spider and he's like, done, problem solved. And that's how he lives his whole life. Like, when he sees that the humans are killing the plants, he's like, in Stampede anyway, he turns around and he's like, kills them all. He's easiest decision ever. He doesn't have to think about it because he only thinks in logic and, of course, the pain of losing his people. But Vash is trying to see things from both sides, I guess. I mentioned before that Stampede is a lot more direct than the original Trigun, but I think that also comes into play with the biblical allegories. It's more direct to the point where characters are literally quoting scripture, but it's almost 100% the bad guy, Knives. We even see him reading a Bible when he's a kid in Stampede. That wasn't in the original scene, but as an adult, he keeps using scripture to justify what he's doing, like he's God, and he
twists it, yeah.
He's come to bring a second flood, essentially. Or Sodom and Gomorrah. God rained fire down on the city of fools, he says. And he also has this weird thing with the piano.
Yeah, he's got a weird obsession with the piano. He's talented, though.
Yeah, he's talented, but he's playing the piano while preparing to commit genocides, which is a little freaky.
Yeah, messed up.
I saw this YouTube edit where they just put, like, really bad, like, smashing the piano in the backdrop of those scenes, or they even put, like, a really bad cover of, like, Never Gonna Give You Up
oh my goodness.
in the background while he's playing the piano, and he just smirks, and it's like, he rickrolled us. He really did. I love edits like that, because those scenes are very dramatic and dark, but put this stupid piano music behind it is so funny.
It's very funny.
So top tier editing. I don't remember who made those, but God bless you. But whenever Knives quotes scripture, it's always from the Old Testament, you'll notice.
Always.
And when he's reading the Bible as a kid, he shuts it and talks about how bad humans have always been. Like, he reads the Bible, he just confirms his own bias, like, so they've always been like this. So humanity is just, like, forever and all time and always will be irredeemable. But I kind of feel like he shut the book after Genesis or something.
Yeah, or something like that.
Because he's like, that confirms my suspicions, okay. But I guess he didn't, because in one scene in Stampede, he straight up calls Vash Jesus. So either he's heard of Jesus or he did read that story. But I think he's not a fan of the New Testament, because when he called him that, it wasn't a compliment. What did he actually say? I think he said, don your crown of thorns and prepare to die in your precious sinner's stead. So that's about as explicit as you can get. But that
was cool.
Normally, when someone calls you Jesus, it's a good thing. Unless, of course, that person happens to be Millions 9.
The one person.
that's where you might be getting insulted there. I would still take it as a compliment, though. Yeah. Especially in the face of this psychopath. Like, at least I'm not like you. I do think that's interesting that this version, it's like, it almost feels like there's less of the symbolism going on, but it's also more direct when it's there, with a little bit of exceptions here and there. For example, there's one thing that someone pointed out that I did not notice. Do you remember the beginning of Stampede when they first find Vash? He's like hanging upside down. Oh, and kind of laughing like he's crazy from having been like hanging there for so long, probably with no water. And he's hanging in between two other criminals. And I did not notice that. Like you see it, but you don't really think of what it means. And Vash is in the middle.
That's deep.
Yeah,
that's very good detail.
That's a nice visual. I love when they put things in the visuals that you don't have to see, but they're there, and there's a reason why they're there. It's not just random. That's one thing I love about Trigun. From the manga to the original to Stampede, particularly Stampede. Again, I think Stargaze is a little bit more clumsy, but I still think I need to watch it again before I make a proper judgment of it. But so far, I'm not liking it as much as the other versions, but it's okay because it's still enjoyable. But I love how intentional every part of the story is.
When they do something, they truly mean it, and it hits hard most of the time. So
I think a lot of the time, when stories happen to have like a Christ figure or something that alludes to some kind of philosophical or religious belief, it's not necessarily intentional. Sometimes it just happens to be this universal thing that many people find inspiring. But with Trigun, it is actually intentional because the author is Catholic, which makes it almost gives you even more to look for, because now that you know it's intentional, then you're looking for all the other little symbols that he's hidden in the story. And it
makes
like
an Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, it makes the story so much more enjoyable, actually.
And fun, yeah.
To just discover how many layers it has, even in the stuff that is completely visual or in something that is not ever stated and yet it's shown over and over again. Now, the next point says, discuss the difference in characterization between the two adaptations. For me personally, every character is better in 1998 except for Vash and Knives. What do you think as far as characterization across both versions?
I would have a very similar viewpoint to what you're saying. Yeah, basically a lot of the characters from the original are much better, much more fleshed out. Of course, with the exception of Vash in the new one and Wolfwood having so much differences, like Wolfwood especially, huge differences.
I don't know if I would say that Wolfwood isn't fleshed out in the new one. I think he is, but it's a different character arc, like totally different.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Different character arc. He just feels like almost like a different character, but they keep the soul of what he is in there.
They keep the bare bones of it. I still say he's basically a different person, but some of the same things happen with his character. He's still a good foil to Vash, but in a different way.
Yeah. Their mutual trust and friendship in the new one versus the old one feels different.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about Wolfwood, one major difference for me is that in the new one, he actually isn't a priest. He's an undertaker, but even then, he's not really an undertaker.
That was so funny on that one episode.
Yeah. You should have asked me my rate before hiring me. She's like, no one hired you.
Didn't he ask for like $10,000 just to like bury the guy?
I thought it was like $5,000
or something. It was something absurd.
Or like 50. I don't know. I can't remember. But there was a lot of zeros on that bill, and he just like smirks. He gave a lollipop to a kid though. That was sweet. But that's got to be like the worst funeral service alive. You just got one guy puts a cross down, says the most clumsy prayer, like he's never prayed before in his life, and then there's your funeral. Pay me, please.
That was hilarious.
Like, to be fair, he probably buried the people too. But, so he's not really an undertaker, or maybe he is just on the side, but it's almost like a cover for what he really is. Like, he's just pretending to be this traveling undertaker.
Yeah.
But the reality of who he is much darker, and he doesn't want them to know.
Yeah, it's kind of like a lazy cover-up that he uses.
Whereas, even though he's not, I don't know if he's actually a priest on the old one, but he's some kind of priest. Even like a weird unofficial one.
I think half the time in the old one he he likes to use it when he wants it, you know? Like, he'll be like, yeah, oh yeah, let me just pull this move.
I'm a man of the cloth.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he was actually ordained or anything. Like, we see that he started his own orphanage, and we see, like, an old man give him a paper. So I don't know if he's actually some kind of ordained priest or not, or if he's just, like, his ministry is simply the orphanage. And he travels around with this portable confessional, which you have to put like a nickel in to confess your sins, and it's the most
genius.
It's amazing and entirely. I feel like that would be so humiliating for someone to put this little church over your head, and then it's like, now you tell me your worst sin. That's like worse than going to church and confessing your sins, because now you're sitting there with a church on your head.
I just loved that. That was hilarious.
But he's got to make his money somehow.
Mm-hmm.
But I think primarily it does not come from confessions, unfortunately. I think Wolfwood is a little bit of a hitman.
Mm-hmm.
So Wolfwood, that's part of why he's one of the most interesting characters in the story, is that he's this walking contradiction. But more so in the old one, because in the new one, I think he actually says that he does not believe in anything. He doesn't believe in God. He doesn't have faith, but in the old one, he is very much a man of faith. He's just completely lost faith in people.
Mm.
But he still has faith in God. He still believes in God. He still talks about him. He still prays. He just can't believe that people can be saved.
Mm-hmm.
So he just tries to save the good ones, but he doesn't believe people can be redeemed once they've fallen.
Yeah, and that the scene where he dies in the original TV show, such a beautiful and wonderful scene. That is probably my favorite scene of the whole series. It paints such a pretty picture.
It's very iconic and heartbreaking. I think, like, it's not just visually beautiful, symbolically it means so much. As a character, Wolfwood goes from it's kill or be killed. He's not happy about it. He takes no pleasure in it, but that's his life. He goes from, like, I think it wasn't his literal father, but he had, like, a guardian, an abusive guardian when he was young, and his first kill was that man, and he realized at a very young age just how much killing people solves most of your problems, unfortunately. And so even though he's not happy about it, he lives his life killing people if they get too close. Not too close, but he won't risk anything. Shoot first, ask questions later, that type of person. So he lives his life that way. But at the end of his life, it's essentially, God forgive me, my entire life was a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's powerful and yet so tragic, because he's realizing this, like, right before he dies.
Right there.
So he's like, is it wrong to ask for forgiveness now? And I don't want to die now that I know. Like, I want to change. I want to live like he did. I never even tried. I never even tried to live like Vash. Now, I don't think Vash is necessarily 100% right if you look at it, like, logically, because I think, in the real world, sometimes you might have to kill a really bad person to protect innocent people, but you shouldn't make that choice easily. Like, it should be absolutely a last resort, not like an immediate decision like Wolfwood makes or Knives makes, although Knives kills pretty indiscriminately. He's not really, unless he can use some human being for his evil plans, he's not going to let you live for any reason unless he just doesn't care to kill you. He's just going to kill you if you're a human, plain and simple.
Yeah, if you see him, you're kind of cooked.
Yeah. Unless you've got some kind of skill to offer him, and it's usually going to be some really bizarre superpower that he might want to use against Vash. Oh, you can blow people up with a saxophone? Sign you up. You're hired. Go torment my brother for me.
Yeah, if we're talking about the new TV show, I'd just, like, if he showed up at my house, I'd just, like, beg for me to be his, like, this is going to sound weird, but, like, I don't know, his clean man, because clean up all the mess he leaves behind, just, like, be one of the cleanup guys.
You leave a trail of blood everywhere you go, you're gonna need a custodian
That's
for
right.
that, and lucky for you, here I am.
Low key, that would probably work.
I've got a mop that explodes upon impact, or some kind of bizarre weapon, because they always have to, like, none of his men are normal. You got, like, Dominic the Cyclops with the hypnotic eye, or, like, Mid-Valley the Horned Freak with the saxophone, I mean, you have some more normal ones like Cade the long shot, except his gun is
His
insane.
gun is this, like a pipe. Like, it's the longest thing ever.
It's like a pipe that goes clear across the city.
Literally. It was like
Or-
something like 50 feet long or something. It's ridiculous.
Or like Monev the Gale is like this jacked up Bane on
Mhm.
Venom, you know?
That guy was hilarious.
Yeah, like, or even like that, I forgot his name now, but the guy who goes around in that metal ball thing with like
the
buzzsaws.
crazy guy.
I forgot his name now. But the job requirements to work for Knives as a gung-ho gun is like, make sure you're like really not normal.
And you're willing to die.
And you have the most bizarre way of killing people ever. And you definitely have to be at least somewhat suicidal
Mhm.
or have no other alternative. And you have to hate people, probably. Like, it certainly helps that Legato has completely embraced this idea that humanity is a lost cause and that knives and plants are the future. And even he is, like, a disgusting human, but he'll happily serve Lord Knives until the day he dies, and he's, like, looking forward to that day because he is a freak, but...
Yeah. And now that character, he's the guy who essentially forces Vash to shoot him, right?
Yeah, Legato.
Yeah, I love that character. Such an interesting and just you can connect with him. Not in the in the way of like, how do you say like, oh, it's like, oh, I could understand him. No,
No.
You hate his guts, but it's like I love to hate his guts. Like his character was so well written, and it's so deep what he's trying to do to Vash, and it drives Vash crazy.
It's deep. It's unnecessarily complicated, but it is deep, and it's so cruel.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the age-old, I wish we had these villains more these days. I feel like villains are very sympathetic or just kind of flat, but there used to be a phrase people would use to describe villains, I think, love to hate.
Mm-hmm.
The type of character you love to hate. You enjoy hating this character and you want to see them fail.
Mm-hmm. Because, yeah, that whole scene where he basically forces Vash to either kill him and he's like wanting him to shoot him. He's like, fulfill your destiny, basically. Or have his friends killed. And unfortunately, Vash has to pull the trigger on him, for which I was happy about. But very interesting part of the TV show and great conclusion to that character.
I really like Legato as well. I remember when my husband was watching it, it wasn't until Legato showed up that he started to pay attention. Actually, I think it was first when Monev the Gale showed up, because then you started to see Vash actually has a serious side, and Vash is very powerful, although he was hiding it for the majority of the series. Again, another reason why I say that the old one is deceptively slow burn pacing.
Deceptive.
Because it's hiding all this stuff from you in plain sight. Like, we see Vash, that there's more to Vash than meets the eye, but it takes a very long time to actually reveal what that is to you, which was frustrating for him at first, but then once he saw it, he was like, whoa, paid attention. And then I remember my husband was saying at first, like, Vash is really weak, I don't like him, why doesn't he show his power to people already? It takes him like 5 episodes to even pull the trigger on his gun, by the way.
Yeah, I remember that. It took him forever.
And even then, he doesn't shoot to kill, obviously. He shoots that guy's, like, arm, what do you call it, like, harpoon arm that he has, to, like, veer it off course. And then he, like, draws, like, a stupid little doodle on it before it goes back, which is funny. Vash is really goofy early on in the original series, but as the series, it's almost about halfway or something, right around when Monev shows up, and Vash almost kills Monev before he remembers what Rem taught him. And then, but it's still, the tone is still shifted noticeably darker at that point. And then Legato shows up, and my husband was really quiet, and then finally he said, I understand now. But what was interesting is that you would think what he meant was, I understand Vash now, but he actually said to me, I understand I am not weak. I just don't want to hurt anyone. Which is so precious to me, because at first he was like mocking this character. He hated him, he's so weak, and then he saw himself in the character. And at that point, you can't hate him anymore. And now you're rooting for him, even though he's a hopeless pacifist. You're like, I want this to be real. I want there to be a world of love and peace, like he's saying. Where even though Vash could nuke everyone, he just wants everyone to live. Now, Vash is really scary when he wants to be. he is not weak.
Again, it's that Jesus figure type. It reflects it so well.
I always say the scariest characters are the ones who totally could kill you, but they won't.
But they choose not to, yeah.
And when you see what they can do, you're like, your respect goes through the roof.
Like, that's what I felt when what's the guy's name again who can control
Legato?
Legato, yeah. When he forces Vash to like blow half the moon apart, I was like, oh my gosh.
He doesn't do the moon thing happened when Knives forced Vash to use his angel arm. Legato tried to force him again, but Vash was able to control it. You're right. So, but he did force Vash to kill him because he was going to kill Meryl and Millie. Yeah,
whenever he used that angel arm thing to blow up half the moon, I was like, oh my gosh.
Vash is a walking powerhouse. But since you were talking about Legato, I showed you that scene on the new one where Legato actually is not killed, although Vash does pull the trigger. And wow, you had a very different reaction to that scene, didn't you?
Oh, yep. I was not expecting that.
You want to tell us how you felt?
I felt messed up.
I felt violated.
Yeah, straight up violated that whole scene. I was just like, what is this? Like, that guy is the most freaky adaptation flip I've ever seen in a character. It's just like, you get this like crazy, edgy, but like morally complex character in the first one, and then this new TV show, he's just like K-pop reanimated, and
his design is different.
Oh my goodness, and he's so sus. It's like, you love to hate him in a totally new, different way, you know.
I think he is still fun to hate in the new one. He's just really gross and super annoying and kind of whiny. And every time he opens his mouth, it is kind of funny, but it also makes me go, shut up.
Oh, it makes me want to puke.
Because his monologues about God or about like how disgusting humans are and how pathetic he is, there were some similar things that he was saying in the old one, but it was deeper and more profound and still like horrible. Mm-hmm. But then on the new one, it's like he's super excited and like weirdly turned on by all this.
It's like he got ADHD.
I don't know how else to say it, but he is fanatical and obsessed with these notions, and it's very disturbing. It's super gross.
In a really weird way.
He's not subtle, and also his intimidation factor is not there. It's harder to be intimidated by a character when they're like, I'm scary. Look at me. Oh, I'm so dramatic. Mm-hmm. When they're more understated and they have more like, when they exercise a little bit more restraint and they control their emotions, I think they're a lot scarier than someone who's just like, he couldn't control himself. He kept trying to kill Vash when he wasn't supposed to, and it was because he would get carried away with his like messed up putting Vash to the tests. I don't even know what to call that. It was...
And yeah, talk about minusing aura. This guy had no aura in the new one. In the old one, as soon as you saw people freeze, you're like, oh crap, he's here.
Yeah. And the music just...
Yeah, everything freezes.
And it's scary. He stands there. Legato stands there and he's scary.
It's the eerie feeling of just you're not in control here. Like, no. He's the boss.
We're cooked now. Uh-huh. And in the new one, he shows up and you're like, this little brat. Mm-hmm. Not this guy. Oh, please, anything but him. And I don't want to say it's bad, but you know he's kind of bad when Wolfwood steps up and even says, you are such a little brat, aren't you? And it's accurate. Mm-hmm. But can you imagine somebody on the old one being like, you were such a little brat to Legato?
Yeah, just be like, what are you talking about, bro?
Being true? Uh-huh. No, the new one, he's like some weird theater kid who has some of the same notions, but dialed up to 100 so that it's like super...
obnoxious.
It's very obnoxious. And in case it wasn't clear, this adaptation of him is very sus and creepy, so it's a bit much, I will say. Like, it's still kind of funny, but scary he is not, at least not in the way you want your bad guy to be scary, generally speaking. Then again, maybe this weirdo was exactly what they were going for in the new adaptation.
Yeah.
But I know we're running out of time, so we'll probably have to make this a two-parter. But before we end this particular episode, I do want to say, so I was talking about Wolfwood before, and how in the old one, he goes from kill or be killed to God forgive me. Mm-hmm. And there's this really underrated scene that I often forget about where he's talking to Millie and he's saying, like, what choice did I have? Because in the previous episode, he had to kill Zazie the Beast, who in the old one, I don't know if he was actually a kid, but he looked like a kid.
Yeah, like...
And Wolfwood did kill him to protect Vash.
Mm-hmm.
But they were still, everyone around him was, like, shocked that he would do such a thing. And he's like, what choice did I have? Don't look at me like that. What was I supposed to do? Let him die? And so when he's talking to Millie, she's still treating him kindly, though, even after looking at him that way. And he's like, aren't you going to say anything?
It's beautiful.
And she's saying, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what would have been right, because you were right. But what Vash said was also true.
Yes.
So she said, you were right, but what Vash said was true. And what did Vash say?
A situation like that would drive me crazy.
I forgot what Vash said now, but again, Vash doesn't believe that. Vash believed there was a way that he didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to kill the kid. Like, Vash could have stopped the kid before he pulled the trigger.
Yeah, what Vash said was he could have not pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I'd have to watch that part again, but I know after the fact, he was like, there might have been a way, you know, like if you had tried or if you'd stopped to think about it, and he's like, don't give me that crap. But of course at the end of his life, he's like, I never did try, ever. And that's what breaks him. He's like, if I'd tried, maybe there would have been so many times where I really didn't have to kill someone. I wouldn't have had to taint my soul like that. And while he's talking to Millie, he breaks down in tears because, let's be honest, Wolfwood, for all his faults, would never willingly kill a child. Ever. So he is really torn up about that. He's not a bad person. He just has like a really bad lifestyle, I guess, which is out of necessity for him, but he never saw any other way until it was too late, which is really tragic and heartbreaking, but also beautiful because it speaks volumes to us. But in the new one, the character arc is very different. Some of it's still the same, like Wolfwood does betray Vash a la Judas, only for, again, takes no pleasure in it. He does it for the orphanage, does it to protect those kids. He'll do anything to protect those kids, but his disposition is so different. He is in the old one, he is cynical and jaded, but he is also kind. And he has faith in God, and he's, I don't know, maybe he's a little bit open to other people, but then in the new one, he's cynical to the point of being downright gloomy. Like, you know, the part on the old one where there's two similar scenes, one in the new one and one in the old one. In the old one where this little kid, he gives these kids his rations, even though he didn't have much food to eat and they're in the desert and they don't know when they'll come to another town to get food. And then he breaks his own ration with Vash. But I feel like in the new one, he would give that to the kids. Like, we see him giving lollipops to kids who are grieving. But I feel like if Vash was hungry, he'd be like, you're hungry? That's tough bananas, buddy.
Yeah, I feel like he would
It's
be
a
like
cruel
that.
world. Like, he wouldn't, even though he was a little bit, like, snarky about sharing with him in the old one, I feel like in the new one, he wouldn't even. He'd be like, get your own. You're an adult. It's dog eat dog, buddy. This is mine. And, like, eat it in his face or something. So he's definitely a lot meaner in the new one, but he still has a heart. He even shows mercy in a rather sad kind of way. There's an episode where he does kill someone and Vash is very angry. He kills Rollo, who used to be a child who Vash knew when he was a child, but now he grew up and they experimented on him to be this big twisted monster. And Wolfwood kills him and Vash is like, how could you do that? How could you shoot Rollo? And he's like, mercy, because that
in kind of
thing,
a brutal sense,
thing that kid had become was so tormented and horrible that
and it's not him anymore,
it was better to kill him. But Vash still clings to the hope that he can save this kid, even if it's futile, and he just can't bring himself to take a life. He doesn't believe that anyone has the right to do that. But even though Wolfwood is very cynical, there is some underlying kindness there. It's just he's very rude most of the time.
Yeah.
But
much for...
As far as character arcs go in the new one, it's not so dramatic as in the old one, like where he does like a complete 180, where he's like, I was completely wrong about everything. It's more like where he comes to see that Vash is actually his friend, and
they can have their differences.
Even though they don't agree, and he thinks that what Vash believes is ridiculous, he still sees that it's beautiful, and he wants to follow him. He wants to help him get as far as he can. And he stops like pretending that that's not the case, and he's like, this is my friend. Which is also a character arc, and it still works. It's just not quite as night and day of a turnaround as in the old one. And a massive difference in the new one is that Wolfwood does not die.
Yes, I forgot to mention that too. Which I kind of like the idea, because it was sad when he died in the
I
original,
remember
but...
you were just about to drop that series to the curb when he died.
I know, when he died. But then, obviously, that's my typical reaction. After a day, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That was actually a very beautiful scene, and I appreciate it. So, but he was my favorite character, so that's why I was sad.
You're like, well, that was a beautiful scene after you pull your fist out of the TV screen.
I know, yeah. Yep, exactly.
You're like, once you've cooled down, you're like, that was really beautiful, though, and keep picking glass out of the carpet.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, he didn't literally break a TV. I'm exaggerating, but he was pretty angry.
Mm-hmm. I remember that now. I low-key forgot about that.
I'm still not sure how I feel about them letting Wolfwood live in the new one, because it seems a bit of a cheap fake out. However, I'm open to it. And there's at least some weight in that he loses a huge chunk of his lifespan during that battle, so that now he's weaker and he's got like white hair. So I'm curious, and I'm not against Wolfwood being alive for the rest of the series. And again, there's not much of it left. But I still think that his death is so significant and beautiful, both in the manga and the original anime. In the manga, it did happen differently, but it's so significant and beautiful that I'm a little bit disappointed that he didn't die in the new one. However, at the same time, I'm open to seeing how that turns out. Yeah, in the new series. Stargaze being the second season of the new series, that's where they do a fake out on his death, where and Legato's death too. But
oh my goodness.
Anyways,
fake out, yeah.
Anyways, there is so much to cover with Trigun as a story and as characters. Like, we didn't even touch on Meryl and Millie yet. We didn't really get into what Knives wants to do.
Future episode.
And so I think we're going to have to talk more about this in the second episode. But thank you for listening. And as always...
Whoa, hold on.
Oh.
We forgot to rate the episodes, or the series.
Now, we can do that in the second part, because we already went, like, overtime.
Fair enough.
We got to leave some juice for the next episode.
Right.
Come on. And it can
You're
be
right.
a shorter episode, hopefully. We'll get better at this. We will.
Absolutely.
Well, in the meantime, until then... This world is made of love and...
Peace.
Darn right.